Hey y'all, this is Marley K. I have a video that I want to share with you, but before I do, I want to make a statement about it a little bit. So first off, there's a reason that I haven't been talking about anti-racism and all the stuff that's going on with, African American Black people in particular for a reason. One reason is because I know we live in a failed state, and it does not matter what we say or do. The dominant society has moved on. They are already stacking their chips in other ethnic and racial groups. They have basically sold the country out to whomever, and our elected officials don't really work for us anymore. So we live in a system that has a broken police, justice system. We have a broken political system. We have a failed economic system. And, we don't respect our laws and norms anymore. Therefore, as far as I'm concerned, we live in a failed state. And there's no need for us as African Americans to protest because they have done everything they can to let us know that they're not going to give us anything. They're never going to treat us any better. They are supplementing other racial ethnic groups, i.e., Hispanics, Syrians, uh, anybody except for Black people. And I don't care where you are on earth, they don't want you if you're Black. They're trying to widen this country or give the appearance that they're trying to widen it before it fails, or they anticipate the failure and they are planning for the future to rebuild. And that future does not include us being a part of this new order that has come about. So they're at war with us, but without saying that they're at war with us. And they have intentionally neglected us. So, in my opinion, what we need to do is one, protect ourselves from, for what's coming. From what is coming. And two, have plans to live, build, share, and trade and serve, amongst ourselves like every other group in this country does, and not rely on this system because it is not going to work out well for us if we do. So it's one of the reasons why I relocated from the city to the country. It's one of the reasons why I have, tried to check out of the system as much as possible and, you know, collect up with like-minded individuals. And I just used the word connect with like-minded individuals. And I have just decided, I just pay attention to what is happening because I understand that in order for a new hegemony to take place, the old one has to fall. And we live in a country that happens to be the superpower. So the term, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, will apply. Because African Americans are at the bottom of the social hierarchy, we have the shortest distance to fall. But them other folks who have had all the power and privilege across this society, which is what I would call Babylon, they're going to fall hard because they're not accustomed to being without their creature comforts. They're not accustomed to not having liberty and being able to go wherever they want. They've always trusted the government because the governments have worked for them. So they're getting ready to understand what it is to be Black without being Black. And the people that are going to be doing the things to them are going to be looking just like them, or people that they thought were their allies and friends and people that follow their system. But they're going to learn the system that created that they have created has evolved, and it's beginning to eat them like everything else does. So this video that I'm getting ready to show you is about the uh, pandemic treaty that is being discussed next week. It's been discussed for the last couple of years, but basically they're trying to finalize it and finalize it quickly because true Yasharel has found out who we are. We've cried out to our Father, and He is coming to our rescue. You can tell this by the severity of the earthquakes, the frequency of them, the tsunamis, the weather events, the evil that has been unleashed upon the earth, whether it is deliberate and man-made or if it's spiritual. You can look at the church and see the state of the church. The church has allowed anything and everything to go on. It's been infiltrated by the world. You can tell just a lot of different things that are going on that are in the Bible. And so it's very hard to deny what is coming. But because we are the head of this demonic system, we are going to lead people. And when I say we, not we, them, because it's not us. We don't do that. Well, I'll take that back. Some of us do because we got some treasonous Black folks among us always. But this country is going to lead people into something that they're not going to be able to get out of. And when they do, it's going to be a wrap. And again, I can't talk about it on this platform. I'll have to talk about it in other places because of the silencing. But what I want you to understand is for Black people in particular, it is time to move on from discussions of race and racial inequity and racial justice with the dominant society. It is time to save yourselves because they are not going to change. And if you have read the Bible tells you they're not going to change. The Bible also tells you they're going to go into the same captivity, but worse than the one they put us in because of how they treated us. So when I show you this video, I want you to think of it from two perspectives. One, I want you to think of it as it is biblical prophecy being fulfilled. Because the taking away of their liberty or sovereignty is to them will be like a prison, but it is going to be the beginning of their imprisonment or in their enslavement. We already know what that's like because we've lived under duress for generations, so we're gonna be fine. And plus, our Father is coming to pick us up. So I don't have any concerns about what is happening. I just want you to be aware so that you can keep watch. The other thing is that this is the end of their system that they built. They thought it would never end, and it is ending. Most of them do not understand the significance of these things. They don't even realize they're happening because they don't really pay attention to world events and world news and what's going on elsewhere because they don't have to. When you're in control and you're at the top of the social hierarchy, you don't have to pay attention to nothing. You run everything. Now, the kings of the earth have given their power over to some of the beasts, not all of the beasts, but the beast, the new beast, the old beast, I'll say that, is forming, and you're getting ready to begin to see it clearer. So I'm guiding you in a direction so you can see what's going on. You can see who are the big players. Make sure you pay attention to the skin persuasion of the perpetrators. And again, it's a notice for you to keep watch, for you to understand what is happening, and for you to be prepared, because this is much bigger than anybody anticipates. You can see it all coming online with the digital IDs, the digital passports, the central banks, digital currencies, cryptocurrency, all this stuff. Famines, war, taking control over food, rationing, so on and so forth. It's all tied together. Climate change, climate agenda. So pay attention to this video. I'm going to play it, and I'll give my final thoughts at the end of it.
All right, let's get into our top story, which is, of course, U.S. sovereignty being handed over to the World Health Organization. And this happens in about 4 days, right? February 27th.
Right. So over the next few days, the World Health Organization and member states are going to work out the details of this intergovernmental negotiating body meeting that happens on February 27th. And what they're trying to do is hand over power to the World Health Organization to dictate policies for future pandemics. The Biden administration last fall released a statement with the WHO saying, we see the need for this. We like it. We think it's important. We're going to do this. We're all in. This is called the WHO CA+, so that's how I'm going to refer to it. All 194 WHO member states are going to allow the WHO the power to declare and manage global pandemic emergencies. That means they could mandate lockdowns. They could mandate vaccines. They could dictate vaccine supplies and distribution, and they can monitor and put in place surveillance of entire populations. I'm going to show you the language because I went through the CA Plus today that hands this to them. Here is what the draft of this treaty, because it's only in draft form right now. Here's what it says. Here's the vision, is that it aims for a world where pandemics are effectively controlled to protect present and future generations from pandemics and their devastating consequences, and to advance the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health for all peoples based on the basis of equity, human rights, and solidarity, with a view to achieving universal health coverage while recognizing the sovereign rights of countries, acknowledging the difference in levels of development among countries, respecting their national context, and recognizing relevant international instruments. So, okay, that sounds kind of nice, but it's predicated on the idea.
Wait, what part sounds nice?
I mean, the idea of like we all get equal access to medicines that we need.
So, like, okay, sub-Saharan Africa that gets screwed, and wealthy countries get the medications, or they charge insane prices, or
Well,
that
we
sort of.
saw this
Right.
happen during the monkeypox outbreak, because Africa's been suffering from monkeypox for decades now, and did not have access to vaccines. But as soon as Western countries have it, hey, here's some vaccines we can use. We've had it in our stockpiles.
And the WHO really already had that power during this last pandemic, because they were the ones censoring. If you had any kind of notice on the bottom of your video, it was going by WHO guidelines. And so they were demonizing drugs already that were alternatives to what's on the market. So it's already happening. They're just going to make it more official now, it sounds.
Right. Yeah, right. They would shoot down things that were more natural curatives, et cetera, in favor of biopharmaceuticals that would make billions of dollars.
Yes. And the idea.
Not to mention,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Not to mention that like if they go with the whole international lockdown routine again, how does that work for distributing then across borders? If it's all then going to be global, are they going to just have to build like in all 194 states, like the manufacturing for any kind of medication or anything that they would need? Because you can't lock down the borders and restrict international travel and then freely distribute what's needed to 194 countries. It seems like
they do address that, but it's not. It's light on the biopharmaceutical collaboration, because they say, we're going to talk about it in a bit, but it's like they encourage pharmaceuticals to work together and share technology so that each member state could make their own vaccines. But it's very loosely enforced in this language, unlike the surveillance language, which is not quite so loose. That's a really good question. Also, I just want to touch on the fact that the World Health Organization is saying, well, some countries did good and some countries didn't. And we don't have data to support this, that anybody sort of followed the WHO to a point and did better than anybody else. I think right now, disagree with me if you'd like, sort of feels like everyone came out of the pandemic the same, whether there was strict or not strict lockdowns. Like no one country was able to like do better through government policy.
In what way, though? In what way?
Outcomes of the pandemic. Like it does schools, feel like.
Well, we don't know fully, right? And I guess we won't know for a few years. But like, kids not being locked down at home, and education being damaged, where they're set back a year or 2 years.
But I'm talking about just like getting through it, because we're now seeing that a lot of the deaths that we were told were COVID deaths were deaths with COVID. Fewer are being attributed to COVID. It seems like no actual government policy got one country through it better than another.
I think Switzerland did, or whatever, because like if you're saying they didn't listen to government, U.S. government policy versus their own, because they didn't do all the things we did here, and they got through it much better than we did.
Yes.
And I believe that was government.
Yes.
Yeah, let us know in the chat what you guys think. Let us know. Did any one country come out of this smelling like total roses? I mean, we use Sweden as an example, and some people say, like Brazil's still going through that. Well, they're still going through it for mandates issues and other things, of course. And now China, that would fully lock down the no COVID policy. Then suddenly everyone got COVID last week or over the past few weeks. Like everyone got it, right? So that was not the solution. That was the awful solution.
And so the WHO is making the point that because everyone handled it differently, we need to make sure everyone handles it the same, even though it would seem to me that the data plays out that everyone handled it this differently and then ended up sort of like getting through it with a similar outcome. Like we all just had to survive it, just get through it, I guess. Is maybe survive is the wrong choice of words. But anyway, I don't think I can agree with the premise that the WHO, had all the right policies. And it's just that we had a bunch of countries acting as bad children who didn't.
Like we and we should really point out who funds the World Health Organization, right? At the heart of this, the number one funder of the World Health Organization is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Number one, as Whitney Webb on our show has articulately laid out, right? So the amount of money that comes from a group that is intimately tied to the biopharmaceutical complex, making money off of this, and then has written books and laid out plans about how the next pandemic will unfold, is behind the World Health Organization.
Right.
All right. So I want to talk about that before we move on. Why, one of the reasons why this is so problematic, I guess that's the appropriate way to say it. Everything is centered around what's best for corporations and rich people, and not for the billions of people on earth who are poor or working class or just barely scraping by. This is going to be so problematic because the people at the top are not elected, and they are making decisions that they don't have any business making. And then they kind of give you this vague, well, nobody did good with the event, and so we're going to take over and make sure everybody does it right and does it the same way. How does that happen? You're going to lock the whole world down? You're going to force the whole world to take stuff that don't work? Like, I don't know. I just have a lot of questions, but in any event, I don't want people that I don't know ruling over me. And I don't want people who I didn't elect or choose to govern me to be governing me. I don't want anybody to tell me what I have to put in my body so I can, before I can go, get on the airplane, before I can go to the grocery store. Um, and I don't have to have luxury things. I don't need to go out. I can cook my own food, but don't prevent me from going to the store and buying my own food because I choose not to do something that this governing body says is good for me when I know better, or when I can read stuff on my own if they will allow me to tell me otherwise. So for Yasharel, for Israel, true Israel, at the end of the day, everything is about us. Everything is about controlling people and taking away our liberty. And that is not what is supposed to happen. I don't know what to say about these people, but anyway, let's get back into it.
Right at the heart of all of this.
Yeah. And I think the point I think history will eventually show that the countries with the fewest WHO related restrictions are the ones that may have done the best. That does seem, and so what they're saying here is we need more universal policy when it doesn't seem that policy actually got anyone through the pandemic, is the point.
Another thing that I want to bring up is that, they're talking about, a lot of countries were already a part of WHO for whatever reason, but many of these countries rejected the lollipop because these people have the computer guy who knows all things, and those like him don't have medical degrees, but somehow they're always in the midst of testing, finding, doing stuff, and then testing it in these third world countries, in India, in Sri Lanka, in Africa, on the continent of Africa, in South America, and we don't know anything about it. And then they're like, oh, we just came up with this wonderful thing and we're going to give it to you. But the people in these other countries know the stuff isn't any good, but they can't talk about it because they can't fight these rich, dominant society men, say that, because they control everything. And so it is going to evolve and get bigger where they have more control. But I don't know how they can even say this when some of these countries didn't even have any issues. Like on the continent of Africa, they didn't have COVID because a lot of people, and I'm not gonna say they didn't have it. They did have it, but they didn't have an issue where they needed vaccines. And when the rest of the world was sick and so on and so forth, the only nation that had really bad COVID was South America, and that's because I hate to say it, but white people are there, and they nasty. They don't believe in protecting other people from diseases and viruses, and that is a constant throughout history. So wherever they are and their culture is, disease will spread because they don't believe in protecting other people. They're very selfish in nature. Whereas, in African countries and other countries, even if they live in communal settings, they tend to not want to make other people sick. So culturally, it didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to be a part of this particular treaty when you didn't have a problem to begin with. So again, it's suspicious and it's being forced. And it's probably tied to some money or some other thing, or probably it's a matter of life and death. Because a lot of these leaders, if they don't do what these people say, they will either get removed from their position or they will have an accident and be gone. So it's that serious, y'all.
Point that I'm trying to make.
Right. Yeah.
And so, okay, that's something we can debate
Yeah.
You know, but again, I don't think that the WHO really has a strong leg to stand on right now, because the things that they were saying ended up not being all that reliable as we went, you know, when we were going the tape.
Right. So let me just say now, to put a tighter point on that, we are now ceding control of our response to a next round of any kind of pandemic, where
to an organization that doesn't have a track record from the last one,
and who is not elected, is an unelected group of people that we are ceding power to. Like, I just want to really drive home this point, because I don't think people are understanding this. And certainly when they see this is not being covered, I did a search, this is not being covered in the mainstream media at all in this way. And it's almost being played up by like the Atlantic and other news organizations I was reading today as a really good thing. This is a really good thing that we're ceding our power to the World Health Organization.
Right. I'm going to go through the CA Plus. And I'm just going to give you the worst case scenario of the things that the WHO is giving themselves power with this document. And I made a list as I went through it. One, they want to give themselves power to define the next pandemic. So what is it? What's the sickness? What's the lockdown? Or, you know, what is it that we're running from? To determine lockdowns, give themselves surveillance power, determine treatments, vaccine mandates, vaccine distribution, vaccine IP and profits, and redistribution of pretty much everything. I'm going to show you. There's a sort of part in here that I'm like, whoa! Like, they think they can literally like change use of land because of pandemic prevention.
This is again the eminent domain clause that we've been talking about. We've covered this over the past.
Y'all hear that? You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Few months, and this was one of the biggest things that stood out. Most people weren't covering this, is that they have the right to seize land. They have the right to seize property.
And we're going to show you the language that they give themselves this power. So,
okay, so y'all know the computer guy who knows all things has been going around buying up all this land all over the world, in particular farmland. So I'm just give you a scenario. You know how the farmers in other countries have been protesting one, lockdowns, because it impacted their ability to hire, to get workers, to plant, to harvest, and because they refused, a lot of them refused the lollipop. So what's going to happen is these people are going to do this again the next time. See, they already have a record of who refused, who didn't take it, who did take it, who didn't take all of it. So when they unleash the next thing and you refuse to take it, they're going to take your land. They'll take your house. They'll take your money. They're going to take whatever it is that they want to take. They're going to get to determine what is a disease or virus, when a lockdown will happen. They'll be able to dictate. Let me go back to this page. Here it is. Define the next lockdown. They'll be able to tell you when it's going to happen, how long it should last, and this is globally. Whatever state you live in, it won't matter. If you live in a different nation, it won't matter. Same thing. You can live in a town, a city, unless your town or city secedes from your nation, you are in like fun. Surveillance power. That means they can monitor you. They're going to be coming out with all these different things, these digital things, QR codes and passports and digital things that you will have to carry with you. You may have to download an app on your phone. You saw how the people were running around in China and they couldn't go if their phone was red or if their phone was green. That's when they could go out, and they have been testing this stuff out for 3 years in China, and they've kept it hush hush here because we are the big superpower that you have to persuade. And if you can't get us to do it voluntarily, the next thing they're going to do is push it on us involuntarily with force. 'Cause trust me, force is coming. They're going to determine treatments. Determine treatments mean you going to take their lollipop or else. Mandates, which means if they say you got to do it, you got to do it. And once they give over the power, unless somebody challenges this body and their powers, it's a wrap. Nobody should have that much power over us because we didn't elect these people to have that type of power to do mandates. But what is happening is this body is becoming a global governance structure, like a legal structure with a handing over of this type of power. Lollipop distribution, it means everybody going to get poison. I'll just say poison. But basically, whatever they come up with and they want to give it to us, if these people say you have to take it, then they're also going to be responsible for distributing it. And because the computer guy who knows all things is the biggest financial backer and stands to gain lots of money from the government's, purchasing stuff that he created, then selling to the biotech industry and the pharmaceutical companies to mass produce. They're going to be rich and happy. We're going to be poor and sick and in prison. And we'll have to talk about profits. And they were talking about redistribution of everything. And that's really important because it falls in line with you will have nothing and you will be happy. This is where we're going.
Like, they think they can literally.
They absolutely knew that the slightest crack in that could lead to all sorts of problems for them. So yes, absolutely controlling the narrative.
Yeah. This document
this is
does.
Something that,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. This is something that I kind of agree, and maybe this is not the right time in the conversation to have this, but I kind of agree with something that Elon Musk had said recently with the danger of this, and I can see that the danger of this. Whereas if you have 194 governments running their if we're in a global pandemic and they're each running their own thing, and a couple of those governments fail at what they're trying to do, the majority of them still survive. If you have one shot and you don't have any like overage, so if they screw up the rollout of their pandemic plans, that's global.
Yeah.
They screw it up for everybody.
Right. And then
it turns something which could be contained into like a extinction event.
Right. And then
I don't like that word.
Well, and then what are the consequences for this unelected group of globalists? Where is there like a high court that can try them?
Well, they do talk about how if two nation states have a dispute, how they work out that litigation and what domain. And they talk about these elected bodies. There must be like two presidents from each country that are serving on the board, and that there will be a auditor at the end of every. But none of them are elected by us. They're only internally elected by WHO and member states. So let's get back to the document and the things that should be, concerning us. It does say that states maintain sovereignty for pandemic preparedness, but not during actual pandemics. It also says that states that join this are bound by their obligations to this document. Take a look here, which defers a central role to the WHO. Basically, it's our way or the highway. Now, it does not discourage private companies from profiting from a vaccine a la Pfizer, Moderna, but it does say that they should share technology so they're not the only ones who know how to make a vaccine that gets us out of the pandemic. But it's very loose on that language, which makes me think that biopharmaceuticals are like, well, yeah, we'll pay lip service to that, but we're not actually going to do it when it comes time to profit from vaccines. It's very heavy with the word encourage. Take a look here. Like, they will encourage patent holders to, waive their royalties or share their patents. We encourage this.
Right.
We encourage big pharma to coordinate, but they don't have to. According to this document, they absolutely still are free to profit. So when and if that happens, it's okay. We sort of got around it with this fast and loose language.
Well, we saw this in the last pandemic, right? So we have a track record, we have a history here. These companies are not going to do that.
No.
They're absolutely going to not, even being encouraged to share is still not going to happen.
All right. And so you see how we're mandated to do something because we have no power and we have no money, but they are encouraged to do things because they're rich and they control everything. And they're white. So there's that.
Now, it does address strengthening healthcare workforce to make sure that they could handle another pandemic, but they're very interested in gender disparity because they point out that women were disproportionately emergency workers and healthcare workers, and they're worried that the workforce we had before was not diverse enough. So as we're preparing for the next pandemic, we're really interested in representation, and it like representation of healthcare workers, that it
Okay, be careful about this representation stuff. And I'll say it over and over and over again. This uh, representation, diversity, and equity is nothing more than their effort to continue their gender wars. And so there's just been a concerted effort for the last, I can't probably tell you, maybe 30 years to discredit men, all men. I'm not just talking about black men, all men. But as you can see, what difference does it make if you have a if you have an issue with the workforce? Why do you care who joins the workforce? Why is it important for men to join the healthcare workforce if they don't want to join the uh, or if they don't want to join the workforce? One reason they don't is because naturally it's a caregiving role, and naturally that is not something that men do. So men are not going to gravitate towards that field. Um, Even with doctors, like a lot of doctors retired during the um, pandemic because they did not want to give out the lollipop. They didn't want to take the lollipop. And so they walked away from the field. So there's a shortage of healthcare workers in every area. People are burned out. They don't get paid enough. And then they have this system in place with these electronic health record systems. They want you to nickel and dime the patients. And nobody's getting paid except for the CEO over the hospital, the bean counters, which are the people who work in the business offices who nickel and dime folks to death and save pennies by not paying the employees and shareholders, if there are any shareholders, for private hospitals. But for public hospitals, it's just the CEO, the business people. Everybody else is screwed. So, and I will say, in most of these business manager positions, they hire women. So it's getting to the point where, now they're talking about gender disparities and inequalities in healthcare. Who cares? Nobody cares who's serving. I don't care if it's a man or woman taking my blood pressure or wheeling me down to surgery. I just want a person who's competent. But they're making it a gender issue because later on down the road, where we're heading, gender is going to be important. And we'll have to talk about that offline.
it shows a diverse, like, is this a problem during a pandemic that, like, oh, I just wish I saw more diverse healthcare workers working on me?
No, this is, of course, the priority of the left, right? This is absolutely the priority of the Biden administration, which is this, like, instead of fixing the country, we're more concerned about equity.
Right.
Like, we're more concerned about making sure that we have a cabinet that has a multiplicity of different genders and gender.
Women disproportionately self-select into nursing. Right. Is that a problem?
Right. Biologically, we know that women gravitate towards, as Jordan Peterson talks about, like women gravitate towards emotional and to people. right? Men gravitate towards things. That's why there's more men in engineering and women in nursing. It's just biology, right? And so now we should make this into the World Health Organization rules that we can't have women being nurses, but you need equity during a pandemic.
I don't know
We need more
exactly
men
what
in
that's
it. It's
about.
ridiculous.
Go ahead, David.
Well, and I was just going to point out, like, we've already seen what can happen with this. There was a woman who had a traumatic experience with a man, and she did not want a biological man working on her in the hospital, and they put a trans nurse with her, and she did not like that. So they made her leave the hospital, the patient.
Yeah.
So that's where this can go.
Yes.
And it will.
Yeah. And so we need more, but I don't know, a trans woman does not want to represent male enrollment in the nursing industry. They want to represent female enrollment. So that's confusing. I'm just not clear where the problem is here. I mean, I do understand that women were disproportionately affected as first line workers, but they had self-selected into this industry. I don't think that in itself is a problem. So, I'm free. I open myself up to being challenged about this. Okay, now about misinformation and infodemics, a new word that I just hate. I hate it, infodemics, but we know it now. We can at least look out for it and reject it. The World Health Organization says they want to conduct social listening campaigns. Could that be another word for surveillance?
Yes.
Okay, you hear what they're talking about? Big brother at it again.
They want to figure out what your health literacy is. They want to make sure you have better health literacy. That's what they call it. And then they will do so by tackling false, misleading, misinformation, and disinformation.
Okay, misinformation and disinformation. You see, it's everywhere. Everybody is on the same page. All these them folks. They're wanting to silence us about the truth. They don't want us to talk. It's going to be problematic for us to speak going forward, which is another reason why we should be concerned about these treaties. And I know some people probably listening are like, oh, well, yes, we need this because disinformation was spread. I'm gonna use this analogy for you people because primarily I know it's white people. You know how the government put the crack in our communities and the heroin and all the bad drugs, and y'all didn't care. Y'all let them lock us up, and it's like, oh yeah, they need to be locked up. They're monsters. You know how they put the drugs in our community, encouraged our men to sell the drugs to our people, and then you did the three strikes, and you put them in prison for life so that you can keep the prison industrial complex going. But as soon as the pill mills popped up and white children, white women, white men became addicted to these pills and started, killing yourselves, ODing, and evolved into meth. You figured out how to make meth out of, you know, drugs. Then y'all had empathy. You had compassion. They needed treatment. Same thing is going to happen here. This is what indifference always gets you. This is what believing that you know everything and that you have a right to police other people gets you. It's going to get you ensnared because other people know how to be policed. We've been policed by you all for centuries. One thing we know how to do is stay in our place. But one thing that white people don't know how to do is follow rules. They don't like to submit. They don't like to be subjected to the law. They don't like to um, be told what to do. And they want to speak. They think they're supposed to have free speech and everybody else's speech should be silenced. Well, this is one of those times where you better recall all the stuff that y'all co-signed for other people and it came back to bite you in your butt. You better be paying attention to those things because this is going to be the same situation.
including through promotion of international cooperation. And so, they're going to just try and teach you to be a better consumer of health news, raise your IQ about medicine, if you will. And then again, this regular social listening and analysis, could that be code for surveillance?
You see, they're going to conduct regular social listening and analysis, meaning they are going to be monitoring our social media to identify prevalence and profiles of misinformation, which contribute to design communications and messaging strategies for the public to counteract misinformation, disinformation, and false news, thereby strengthening public trust. No, it actually does the opposite. When you tell us to be quiet and you tell us not to tell the truth, we don't trust you. But okay, if you say so.
Yes.
In which case, everything becomes surveillance because right now our Constitution protects us. Although, as Edward Snowden points out, the government gives itself powers to collect information that they think is necessary based on certain reinterpretation of laws or certain power grabs or what have you. So this could supersede the U.S. right to privacy if we think, I need to know how you think at all times in case you are capable of launching an infodemic that causes other people to say, take this thing or feel this way, or like, what if you said that you were super into nude yoga is the way to survive the next pandemic, and that's so dangerous that then,
Don't take anything natural. Take only what they say take, or else. Wear your mask, or else. Stay in the house, or else. Don't go out to eat to restaurants, or else. They want to tell us what to do. They want us to believe the science that they present. They don't want us to read any science that contradicts what they say. And the other thing that is going to happen is people who work in the science, uh, bioengineering, biotechnology, in academia, all types of researchers are going to be silenced. So you're only going to get one perspective because it's not just a silencing with us. The medical community is going to be silenced. And you could see how they did the man who invented the RNA, um, whatever that stuff is, that's in the lollipop. When he came out and was like, nobody should be using this. This shouldn't be used in mass. This is dangerous. They silenced him. They deplatformed him. They delegitimized him as if he'd done nothing. And he still holds the same position that he did when he came out with it years ago. And everything that he said would happen has happened, but they don't talk about it. They don't put it on mainstream media. And so because of that, a lot of people, they don't know how to do research and find out things for themselves, and they're too afraid to do critical thinking and free thinking, so they just believe whatever is told to them, and then they attack people who think differently. Well, dissent is going to go away, and you're not going to be able to get actual information that counters whatever they come out with, or research from diverse people so that you can make an assessment of what it is that you want to believe. You're going to get one thing from this one world government, and you ain't going to have a choice. And if you choose to go against it, you're going to get whatever they have for you. And they have plans for that too.
They need to, I mean, you can see how that's the stupidest example I could think of.
Right.
Because it's relevant.
I think nude yoga is a curative. So
it may very well be, or you could break an arm, because that sounds slippery.
That's what they were doing at Epstein Island. And the problem I have is not just that they're surveilling, is that this is outside of the U.S. government court system. Like this is now ceding control to an organization that will. I mean, if someone does share this information and they are feeling like their rights are infringed, where do they go? Because it's not going to be upheld in the courts. It's not going to be upheld in the United States court system.
Right.
Who are you filing this against?
Yeah.
You've literally ceded control, and now we're in a, quote, emergency situation. According to whom? Well, according to the WHO that we've now ceded our power to. So the U.S. Supreme Court here, and this is the point that Catherine Austin Fitts makes about this, is that now the U.S. court system is out of the picture.
Yes.
Right? So you don't have any power. And the point.
Now, this is important because this is kind of like what happened with the Emergency Authorization Use Act when our country allowed the drug makers to put this stuff out, although it had not been tested, and or it was tested, but they had poor results, and they hid that information. And the government knew this, the drug companies knew this, but they all were in, robbing Peter to pay Paul, washing their hands, giving this stuff to us for free because the government was going to pay for it. In turn, we pay for it, which is why they need to hire these IRS agents to come garnish our monies from us, because they make decisions and try to figure out ways how they're going to rob us to make the rich richer. So, with that said, they are going to create these rules where the government is going to give this governing body and these drug companies basically, coverage to do whatever to us, and we have no recourse. So just like you can't sue the government, like here in America, we can't sue our government. They made sure that they put that in writing. Other countries have class action lawsuits against the drug makers because they don't do their people the way that our country does us, and we don't do anything about it. So, of course, this is an escalation of what happened during the event 2021, 2021, whenever they distributed this stuff, and they decided that you couldn't sue for damages if you had any adverse effects. Well, it's getting ready to be the same thing, but on a mass scale. So imagine giving over your power to these people. These people say, hey, you got to take this new thing, and if it kills you or kills your baby or injures you, you don't have any legal recourse. You just maimed. This is where we're headed.
The point of this is, and this is again why Africa stood up to this when they were voting on this at the end of the summer and these draft proposals, and Africa said no way, and the world stood up and applauded African countries for putting their foot down. It's because they saw that they didn't want to be ceding any more control to these Western elites. And that's really what it is. It's almost like colonialists in a way, right? So they're ceding this power to these Western elites once again, giving away their sovereignty. And they said in Africa, and countries said, we don't want to do that anymore. So it's hundreds of years of you doing this to us. We're not doing it anymore.
Because if an infodemic is at stake, then all wrongthink becomes a reason to survey, a reason to deplatform, a reason to what?
Right.
Right? Accuse you of a crime for wrongthink.
Well, we've already, and David brought it up earlier, like we've been deplatformed on YouTube multiple times, 4 times to be exact, banned and blocked for things that we were literally that was coming out from science, from doctors, the medical professionals, and not only that, reading from Pfizer's own classified documents that ended up coming out.
This happened to me last week before last. Everything that I did in my video, I read from studies, science magazines, biotech magazines, and they banned the video, gave me a warning because I talked about something that they did not want me to talk about related to this particular subject. Now, if you want to see it, you will have to go to Rumble or Odyssey. It is still up there, but it is not on this channel because they took it down and they blocked it. Well, it's still, I can see it, but you can't see it. And so they gave me the opportunity to delete it, and I didn't delete it, so they blacked it out. So you can't access it. But you know, like he's saying, they were deplatformed for reading stuff that came from science. You're not able to um, talk about anything medical unless you're a medical professional. And if you're a medical professional, you have to talk about things in a certain way. They have guidelines for you to talk about certain things. And, for example, I have watched Dr. John Campbell during the entire pandemic, and I've watched him evolve and change his stance on the lollipop, which it wasn't my stance initially, but I was looking for things like information on natural immunity, alternative sources to uh, alleviate suffering if in the event you did catch it, how to build up your immune system, things like that. He was really good about that. And so now that he has been reading all of the data that comes from the drug companies and all of the legal documents that came from the Freedom of Information request and all of the legal challenges that have come from people trying to get information from the drug makers, he has a totally different stance. And they're threatening to deplatform him. They're trying to ruin his professional, credibility because they dislike the fact that he is preaching something different from sorcery or pharmakia, I guess this to say pharmakia, pharmaceuticals. We're all going to be silenced if we don't go along with the narrative. And so all you're going to have is groupthink. That's what's coming.
And yet, because the WHO, the World Health Organization, had certain guidelines in place, YouTube ceded its own power to the WHO. And therefore, in their own terms of service, Google's own terms of service, they would ban you and block you based on what the WHO said. So they were.
So this is why if you go to somebody's video and you see something underneath it, they have the little blue box, and it's, if you're talking about something medical, it'll have that. Or if you're talking about particular subjects that have been deemed conspiracy theories, this is why.
They were already ceding power, and then they can basically defer to it. Say, no, we go with what the WHO says.
Yeah.
Well, and beyond that, we saw it happen on. Oh, sorry, Philip.
That's okay. Go ahead.
We saw even the newsletter. So in your email, our newsletter has been called dangerous. So it's like the platforms, your email, like this is expanding everywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
And I will say, for me, my website has been has some type of page where it asks you if you want to go. It could be considered dangerous, la la la. So my stuff is already tagged and marked. I don't know what happens if I send something via email, like a newsletter, but it definitely happened to me on Medium. And I had people would flag report my thoughts, and I would get warnings, just all kinds of weird stuff. But it's only, I hate to say it, one group of people who need to control others, how they think, how they speak, what they eat, what they, it's just so exhausting. But at least we're used to it, us Black folks. White folks, y'all better get used to it.
Yeah, go ahead, Philip.
Yeah. So in that though, like that last image we had up there, we're talking about like the social listening and the increasing your health, like the public health literacy. Like I see that very much as all of these countries signing on to give up science to just one, like basically what the WHO wants.
Yeah.
So I would see this as it's not just them like saying what information is or is not out there, but actually preventing people from studying things they don't want. And if we relinquish control over science and scientific data gathering, then they can basically just feed us anything they want, and we have no alternative. We have nothing to say about it.
Yeah.
Just giving them control of the science.
Yes, you're right. Now, I just today finished Edward Snowden's autobiography, and he talks about how, based on his disclosures, there were many court cases that did remove the right to survey from the NSA and other CI documents. And so, or not document, other agencies, rather. And he felt like it
CI is Central Intelligence.
handed it over to the court system, and the court system got a lot of it right, and so that it was worth it. But we would not have this right to take it to whatever international court. According to this document, if we were being surveyed, if we were being silenced, if we were being accused of spreading infodemics, I really don't know what our recourse would be. Now, about this redistribution of everything concern, here's where I got that. Again, this is from the CA Plus. This clause says that the parties in CA Plus will identify and integrate into relevant pandemic prevention and preparedness plans interventions that address the drivers of the emergence and reemergence of disease at the human-animal environment interface, including but not limited to climate change, land use change, wildlife trade, desertification, and antimicrobial resistance. So, land use change is a concerning, like they can decide.
Animal environment interface. I mean, this is exactly what's been happening in the Netherlands.
So they can say like, oh, for instance, bats can't find enough water to drink because of drought, because of climate change.
Right.
And so then they're bringing viruses into human populations. And so we need to change completely the way we farm,
right,
or what have you.
Right. Or because of nitrogen levels, we want to make sure that people are kept inside of a city in 15-minute cities. We don't want people driving because of the concerns about expansion of this virus in some capacity. We want to keep you here in this place, locked down. We don't want you driving.
Okay, and so again, this plays into a lot of the other things that I've been telling you about. They're getting us accustomed to surveillance. Surveillance is going to be huge with everything that is happening. Technology is going to play a huge role in it. So, we're learning about the 15-minute cities. And remember, nobody's hiding anything anymore. So, you can call me a conspiracy theorist all day, all night, but it's out there in the public. Like they're telling you, rationing. They're going to ration stuff because they'll be able to tell farmers what they can grow, how much or how little they have to grow in order to, do business or to stay afloat or to just keep their land, because through eminent domain, they could just be like, okay, well, you ain't going to do what we say do. We're going to take your farm. Get out. So this is a slippery slope. And I don't think people understand the significance of any of this.
Driving anywhere, we're taking your farms away. This is exactly what's been happening. It's been happening in New Zealand. It's been happening in the United States. It's been happening in the Netherlands. It's been happening around the world. So this is not
only going to truck in approved food.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a conspiracy theorist. And
you're going to be eating Soylent Green. That's why they're trying to tell you, you got to stop eating meat. You need to eat green vegetables, spinach and lettuce with the lollipop already in it. You can't eat fish because they're going to kill it all. They don't want you to have any wild meat, no rabbits, no deer. Going to make sure the environment is destroyed so that they can't live. And if they do live, they're going to be sick and contaminated. If you eat them, then you're probably going to be sick. It's going to be so problematic. And they just have everything planned out. It's a gradual demolition of our way of life and the earth itself to achieve the goals that they want to achieve. So, you'll have all these things going on, and you know it's just not a coincidence that this number of things are happening at one time to create this scarcity so that they can do whatever it is that they want to do. But that's exactly what they're doing. But when you talk about it, you can see it and you put it all together. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, they've been telling us what they're going to do. I've been pointing it out to you. And so I just want my people to understand what's coming next.
I see a lot of conspiracy theory. I see a lot of people in the chat saying, guys, wake up. This is not a conspiracy theory. And people in the chat are saying this. This is happening right now. 4 days they vote on this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of it I have sort of, like, oh, that can't be. No, that's probably not the case. And then I read this document and I'm like, WTF, it's real. This is real. What they actually are writing out.
It's in the document. These guys got together. I mean, oh, come on.
And when everybody signs off on this, this gives them what they have wanted basically forever. It gives the power on a global scale to a few elite people, like we like to say, unelected people. It gives them the power to seize land, to force whatever change they want. They can do it all under the guise of this WHO document. They're like, look, everybody signed on this, so we can seize your land. We can call herds. We can basically prevent people from hunting, prevent people from growing their own food, prevent people from collecting their own rainwater, like all down the list. And so that everything is now mandated that it has to come from this handful of people who are unelected, who now seize control of everything. They've just been waiting.
And one thing you didn't even mention, Philip, was the money supply. And this is why they don't want you to have cash, right? They want you to move away from, they don't want you to have gold. They don't want you to have silver. They don't want you to have cash. They want you to move towards a digital currency that they control everything, which is all fake. It's artificial to begin with. They don't want you to go into bank tellers. Banks now reward you for staying home and staying away from the bank, right? You get.
And what I want to say is I went to Krispy Kreme Sunday. I took my grandkids out and we had donuts, went to Fun Park for my granddaughter's birthday. And afterwards we went to Krispy Kreme. And when we pulled up, they still have the sign up. You remember during the pandemic, they were like, oh, because of germs on the money, we prefer digital payment. And then others were like, there's a coin shortage. So if you want to pay, can you give us coins? And so the reason that they wanted the coins is because if anything happens, the coins are made of metal. And so they will be valuable. The money is going to be worthless. But they want to try to, they were trying to collect as much change as they could so that once they're calling the currency, you have nothing of value. You will be forced to use your digital currency. And then if you have debit cards, well, it's just numbers on the screen. You don't really have any money. Now, if you take that card and stick it in the ATM machine and pull some money out, you have something of value that you can exchange that in its currency and it's valuable. And you can exchange it for whatever it is that you want. And it's a private transaction. Nobody knows it. But they want to encourage you to use your debit cards more because those are trackable. And the banking systems have been transitioning their systems. So now they can tell everything that we purchase with our bank cards. They're not telling us that, but they can. And they're also tracking carbon emissions because that goes along with the climate agenda. So there are a lot of different things going on at one time, and it's all coming to a head. And it's all leading to this one world order, one world government. Things that are happening have already been prophesied. So if you read the Bible, you already know what time it is. If you understand the history lessons, history is repeating itself, or history is being fulfilled. There's nothing new under the sun. But for those who are not ready and those who are not paying attention, they're going to be in for a rude awakening.
Get extra. You think you save money on your checking account if you do not go to the bank, right? They don't want you to be involved in your own money. They want a digital supply.
I mean, but you talk about land use, right? Or right to access land. Think about vaccine mandates, right? So many people were able to get exemptions for their vaccine mandates or what have you. You won't have that option. They're just going to come to you, stick you with something.
Yeah.
And, or else you don't access any land except maybe your own bedroom or what have you.
And money. Right. Oh, we have your vaccine passport. You didn't get your vaccine, your WHO approved vaccine. Therefore, we're not giving you your money. Yeah. We're not giving you your stipend. You don't have access to money.
I, Julian Gordon, with this mortgage,
This is why you have to try to be as self-sufficient as possible and get out of the city. If you get out of the city, you stand a better chance. If you get out of the north, you stand a better chance than being in the south, because I just have a feeling the southern states are not going to go for this nonsense. A lot of them will not. As you can see, they kind of rejected a lot of this mandate stuff, and they understand or appear to understand the concept of freedom. Now, I don't know if a lot of these people were putting on the front, because y'all know white supremacy plays both sides. So it shall be revealed if it was some BS. But, from what I can tell, a lot of states, it's just a lot of states who did not protect their citizenry. And it's because they are going along with hidden hands' agenda. A lot of these people are considered young leaders, and we don't know anything about it. They went to certain schools. They are in certain social organizations. They are affiliated with these bodies who make decisions that are leading to this one world government. And so we kind of have to just kind of pay attention to that.
Which part of my freedom to say, did you know that the word mortgage literally means death pledge? The prefix.
Think about how far back they started the Real ID system, right? And I don't remember where I was, but I was at FedEx to ship a package. They grabbed my license and they scanned the back of my license at FedEx and got all my information. I was like, I didn't realize that was a thing. But now with this Real ID, it's going to be your passport will be tied to it. Mm-hmm. Your money's going to be tied to it. Yeah. All of this stuff is going to be tied to it. And all I can say is, I think we all owe Alex Jones an apology.
Mm. Yeah, who was absolutely right about it. And when they scanned your thing, they knew what you were sending. They knew what you were sending, scanning, here's this David sending packages here, this and that. They can control everything.
So the question remains, does Biden even have the power to do this? Recall that President Trump withdrew from the World Health Organization, and President Biden signed us right back up as soon as he got into office. So could a future president then withdraw from the CA plus? They could, but the CA plus is binding for 2 years at a time. But doesn't Biden need congressional approval to give this kind of power to an outside body? There is precedence that says that he could make an executive decision to sign us up for this.
Well, the executive branch, the executive branch is one of the few, let's be clear. The United States presidency, historically, under the Constitution, is pretty weak. It's a pretty weak office, actually. However, one area it's in strength is in treaties. Right? The executive branch and the president of the United States has the power of the treaty. And so this is seen as a pandemic treaty, right? So this gives the president power. And this is the brilliance of this document, is that it falls under that umbrella. Yeah. And therefore, Congress be damned. And we also see that the expansion of the executive branch.
All right. So I just want to go back to one thing. Y'all notice they say 45 took us out of this organization so that we didn't have to do this because he understood what was coming. Now, folks can say whatever they want to say about old Dusty, busted, crazy. And granted, I agree with all of it. He's a hot mess. But there were some things that he did. If you go back and look at what he did, he was trying to prevent a lot of the things that are happening today. Like, everybody was like, why is he buddying up with Russia and talking to Lavrov and blah, blah, blah. Now, do I think he was an unwitting agent? Yes. I think they understood who they were dealing with. But I also understand that the big picture is nobody wants to go to war. I mean, look at us. Everybody rush. We got to get rid of Trump and Trump out of office. And look at you. You're worse off. Um, and the people that's supposed to save you are actually the people who are selling the country, selling us out to the rich people, and corrupt, just as corrupt, if not more corrupt than the Republicans. Now, the Republicans are corrupt and racist. Don't get me wrong. But this selling us out the way that the Democratic Party has, especially us African Americans, we have been loyal to these people, and look at what they do to us. Man, if y'all don't open your eyes and see what time it is, I just, there are no good guys. That's basically, we're stuck in the middle. We're between racist people who don't give a crap about us and neglect us, and covert racists who don't give a crap about us and who sell us out and are selling the entire country out. So, we're in between a rock and a hard place. We should not be loyal to any party. We should not be loyal to any body except for each other, which is what we are.
Anyway, over the past number of years, he can just go to war without Congress anyway. I mean, look what we're doing with,
Yes.
in Ukraine and every other war we're currently in, never got any congressional approval.
Now, you can see how a lot of these policies that are supposed to be handled at the state level would be challenging this, governors or attorneys general, but there's no guarantee that the Supreme Court takes up any of their cases. So it's, I mean, if I were a betting woman, and I put the odds of the United States actually joining this treaty, I'm going to say 75%.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 100% because Biden's like, oh, it's all ready to go. So we're signing it on the 27th of February. We're ready to go. So
boys, do you want to ring in?
I'll say 100%.
Take your.
Yeah, no, I'm with you because it's like.
Go ahead, David.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that delay. So I think it's because we've seen what they do on war. They're always, against these little things on the fringes. But when it comes to things like this, they all jump in lockstep.
So you give me a number.
For that control.
A number.
I'm 100%. I'm with Clayton.
Okay. Philip?
I'd say, yeah, no, with David's point, that's exactly the point I was going to make. Like, this is one of those ideas where you have like a handful of people at the top making the decision for the majority of people at the bottom, from their perspective. And we won't really have a say in it because we don't. So I would say that if you look at any country, I would imagine that around 70 to 75% probably of the people of that country would disagree with this decision, and it's just that upper echelon that's making the decision for them.
I think I disagree. Just based on how, you saw how polarizing people were during the pandemic. If you did not believe in the science, you got your head chewed off. If you decided, I don't want to take that, because we don't know what it is, we don't know what it does, we don't know the success rate. They're saying that, but do we really know? And why do we have to have so many? Like, if you had any questions, like people, especially liberal people, the LGBTQ community, because they were afraid for their own health, grandma and grandpa, like I said, my parents, like everything they put out, they took. Oh, I got all my stuff and I'm boosted, and you couldn't come over to the house if you didn't have it. So, I would say probably half of the country would go along with this idea of a treaty because, they still believe in the government. They still believe in science. They don't do any independent anything, and they're not led to what if they are afraid of labels. If you don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist, you follow the instructions, you do what they say do, you stay in the club, you do the group think. And that's never been who I am. So, I didn't care anything about the labels, but I'm just thinking about, they say they don't think a lot of people would go along with it. Well, look at how many people did go along with it. And even, you think about that rationing study that I did the other day. The rationing study pointed out that, like, a high percentage of people in the UK during World War II approved of rationing, even though, they created scarcity because they created the war. And then people were like, yeah, just limit what we can get. And we're happy with that because everybody gets some versus, you know, if you having the liberty to go out and get whatever it is that you need to get and the early bird gets the worm. So I doubt seriously that people would oppose it because they don't understand what is coming down the pipe. It always sounds good in the beginning, but once you sign this, they've already done the experiments. They already know what people will go along with. They already know who's going to resist. They already know who's not going to participate. So then we're going to be going into those Walmart FEMA counts. Oops, did I say that out loud? Okay.
All right. I'm just holding out because I'm an optimist. 'Cause I don't want to.
So you said 75%.
I say 75%
right.
chance it happens.
All right. Well,
I'm
And that's still
leaning
pretty
towards it.
significant.
let us know in the chat what you guys think. What's your on a range of 1 to 100? Where do you guys think this is going to happen? Do you guys think this is going to happen? We'll even do a poll later about this. But
But
let us know in the
you
chat.
see this contingency of people who are like gaming the world. Like, what part of the world can I live in where I feel like my kids aren't going to be conscripted into war and I won't have to have vaccine mandates and I'm not going to be beholden to this? And maybe now we'll see African passports start to gain favor and,
Oh, now, people told us we need to go back to Africa. Now look, everybody, all the white people want to go to Africa. They have the money to go to Africa. Um, Africa was a shithole country, but now the white places and white spaces in the world are getting ready to be destroyed because of their own doing. And where do they want to go? They want to go to South America and they want to go to Africa. And what are they doing when they go? They're driving up the cost of living for the locals. I experienced the same thing in Florida. You live there, people come from out of town, they have lots of money, they buy up property, drive up the cost of rent and home values, and then people who live there can't afford to buy, and they can't afford to rent, and they can't even afford to live in the place where they work. A lot of people had to live in a different county and commute to the county that they worked in because they couldn't afford to live there anymore, like especially in South Florida, in the Orlando area. So there's going to be um, sticker shock for a lot of local people because wherever white people go, they mess up everything. And I'm saying it, I'm standing by it. It's a a good time for them and this misery for local people. And I feel sorry for the people in Africa because they do not understand what the hell is coming their way. We know what is getting ready to happen. There's the people who can leave are going to leave. They're going to South America. They're going to the Caribbean, and they're going to South America. And those of us who can't leave, we're just stuck. We're gonna be destroyed. But it's the African passport is the thing now because that is where all the resources are because they're going to destroy the West, which didn't have much anyway. They're going to destroy Europe. Europe's going to be destroyed because of war and weather war and CERN. And America's going to be destroyed because of war. Uh, it's going to be desolate because they're going to do these, you know, toxic chemical spills. We're going to have natural disasters. Um, we're, we're likely going to see war here. Even if it's just the EMP, the grid is going to go down. We're going to experience civil war, civil disputes because states are going to fight against states. Cultures are going to fight cultures. People are going to be fighting for resources. So it's really getting ready to get wild out here. And people who are scary but have money are going to flee. They're the people that tore up the stuff, but they have the money to flee. And we're going to be left here to destroy ourselves.
As the next passport that's like a passport of freedom. Who knows, right? The countries that are holdouts, where once maybe Brazil,
Yeah.
now that president's gone, the president who is in office now likes the idea of this. So we'll see.
Yeah, and Bolsonaro said he's going back to Brazil to be the opposition, and Lula da Silva said, "Hey, we're all back in on the WHO. So where you thought Brazil was holdout, not anymore." Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live.
All right, people. Well, I wanted to share this with you because it's really important. It had a lot of good stuff in there, but it's tied to a lot of the other things that I've been telling you about when we talk about the environment, um, all these different agendas, the loss of freedom, the desolation that's coming, more lockdowns and different things. So I want you to be prepared and aware. Tell your people. And I know, some people you can't tell nothing, but at least you will be in the know. All right, this is Marley K. Please leave me your feedback in the comment section if learned anything from this. If even if you disagree and you don't believe it, I understand and I respect that too. Let's disagree respectfully and like the video, share it. Please subscribe to the channel and also please subscribe to Rumble because they do believe in free speech. This platform does not, and I'm subject to be booted, at any time because of the type of content I produce. I believe in telling the truth. I believe in providing different perspectives, and I believe in teaching people how to think critically and seeing through all the BS. So I'm subject to not be on this platform much longer, and I'm going to stay until they kick me off or until they ban me. But please go to marleyk.net, sign up for my newsletter. Please go to um, Rumble, search for Marley K. Also Odyssey, search for Marley K. I'm on Patreon. I'm on Coffee. All of my links where you can find me are on my YouTube homepage. And I haven't been writing. I just started back, but it's just kind of difficult to decide what to do, knowing that all this censorship is coming down the pipe. I've been gradually trying to deplatform my own self before they do it to me. And now I'm at a point where I'm kind of running out of places to do work. So I'm going to warn you as much as I can, as often as I can, until I can't. So again, please sign up for Rumble because the censorship is coming. It's just a matter of time. As soon as they get the green light, they couldn't do it through Congress. They created the Disinformation and Misinformation Governance Board or whatever they called it. And people were like, what the hell? And so they got rid of it. But this is a way for them to be able to surveil and to silence us and take away our liberties, what few we have as African Americans, um, through a different body. And you can't pose any legal challenge because it's not done through any governing body in this state. So I don't know how states would fight that. And I don't know if a lot of them would. It's just going to be interesting to see. But I just want to help you understand where we're going, what's coming down the pipe, and so you will be able to understand why people are talking in code, why you have fewer options of things that you see on the internet, why you need to buy books. I've been telling you for years now, buy books, buy books, buy books. Get as many books as you can. Learn how to, you know, take care of yourself as best you can. Gardening books, old medicinal herbs, Chinese medicine, uh, Native American medicine. You're going to have to learn how to take care of yourself. And you're going to have to read, because if you're going to rely on technology, technology is getting ready to be a trick bag. So, with that said, I'm out.